I thought it would be interesting today to focus on the development of the Logos. Now, there are many out there in the world who have a purely literal interpretation of the Bible. And they'll believe that that literal interpretation was actually the original interpretation going centuries back to the early Christians. Well, actually, this isn't true. And for the rise of this fundamentalist viewpoint, we need to go back about 100 years to a publication of about 90 essays. And it was published under the title The Fundamentals, a Testimony to the Truth. It was edited by Dixon and Torrey. And that work is the foundation for many modern churches who adhere to a purely literal interpretation of the Bible. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, so what? Well, what I'm going to say is a lot of the interpretation which these churches will adopt is actually not just from the literal text, but are concepts which have been developed and moulded over the centuries. And the Logos is one such concept. Now, in the Encyclopaedia Britannica, the Logos has a number of different meanings. It derives from the Greek word for reason or for plan. But it also means word. Now, in the Greek theology, such thinking centers around divine reason that lies in the cosmos, giving it meaning and order. Now, the notion of the Logos is central to Christianity. And we only need to go to John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word. And we can rewrite that as in the beginning was the Logos. So, what lies beyond that simple meaning of reason or word? Well, I've already said there are a number of attributes to Logos, and word is only one of those. And we've also noted that in Greek theology and philosophy, the Logos is understood to mean the divine reason, which gives the universe both form and meaning. Now, at this point, it would be useful to start to focus just a bit more on the development of the Logos. Heraclitus, who is considered to be the founder of modern science, employed what we might now describe as scientific inquiry as to whether or not the universe actually followed an order or was just chaotic. He was looking for some sort of logic, a logic on which the natural world was based. The reason why this he called Logos, the purpose behind what took place. And it's interesting to note that this is where we get modern science labels. For example, biology and geology and psychology and so on. Now, John sees the Lord as the ultimate reason why everything happened. And we can then see how this would link to the term Logos. Now, there's another development in our understanding of Logos. And this is a school which combined both the Greek and Hebrew thinking. And this centers around those who were engaged in the translation of the Bible into Greek. This is the Septuagint. Now, one of these was a very learned professor called Philo, and it was his job to interpret Hebrew thinking into Greek. It was Philo who changed the notion of the logos from it to he, thus personifying the logos. And this was a very important shift in theology. Now, in John's Gospel, we see that John combines the approaches of Heraclitus and Philo. Thus, there is an organizing principle to everything, and the logos isn't just personified. He is a person, and he is the Word. So John writes about the 4 vital attributes about the logos. His eternity. In the beginning, the logos was already there. His personality, the logos was face to face with God. His deity, the logos was God. And his humanity, the logos became flesh. So when we start looking at the literal interpretation of the Bible, we take for granted certain concepts and certain notions, and we imagine that it's always been the case. Well, one such notion of the logos, if we look at its development, we can see that it wasn't always the case. What Swedenborg would say is that the real meaning, the spiritual meaning, lies just below the surface of the literal. And that spiritual meaning can be understood by the science of correspondences, which will be the topic of another one of these short presentations.